there, I'm Glenn Brulé of ESI International, Executive Director of Global Client Solutions. That's a great question. We conducted a survey recently because with all my travels around the world, one of the things I really strongly felt, it was sort of a lurking feeling or notion, was that BAs and managers of BAs weren't really being honest with me. We visit a lot of customers around the world, and admittedly, these customers will tell us the life is good. And in fact, that showed up in some of our survey findings. I'm still not 100% the world is good, and if it is good, then I'm quite concerned that people are happy to have it at good and not excellent. And so some of the survey findings results were both validating and yet alarming. The findings were quite staggering, actually, in terms of executive sponsorship and buy-in. And we know this because not a lot of business analysis activities are tied back to, let's say, profitability or market share of the organization. Perhaps a finding that wasn't quite so surprising was the biggest struggle in the world of business analysis is perhaps with communication. Communication with stakeholders, communications with executives, management. And I think the world over, this is a telling sign of a couple of things. One, it's growing, and we're starting to talk about it, but I think it's communication about some of the more poignant items, including efficiencies and profitability of organizations. Some of the key findings, as we've mentioned previously, included lack of communication with organizations, and we're still sifting and digging through and maybe even pontificating about what those people are. But essentially, key findings would lead me to believe that we're not communicating the value of business analysis to organizations, although it is growing. And most disconcerting is that we're not tying business analysis activities back to overall profitability, market share, growth, customer satisfaction, and retention, although we would. And we did see in our findings that customer satisfaction, oddly enough and interesting enough, is something that is of great interest to business analysts as they're producing artifacts within the realm of business analysis. For business analysts, I would suggest the following. Work with management, work with executive management team, not only to sell the benefits, but to sell to the organization what would happen if business analysis practices were no longer present. What if we were to remove those business analysis practices from organizations? What would be the downside? And that's how I would sell the effect and the impact of business analysis. Number one. Number two, communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't emphasize that. Communication will lead to collaboration, which will lead to much more efficient teams. We're seeing this manifest itself through agile methods, again, the world over, a practice that seems to be catching on very well and demonstrating a high degree of efficiency where project success is concerned. Survey results that came out, oddly enough, were done in isolation of the top 10 BA trends that maybe you've had a chance or an opportunity to review. And interesting enough, they do support them. And one of the things that we suggest, in fact, the very first trend that I wrote of was that business analysts really need to begin to demonstrate their credibility within organizations, not purely from a communication perspective, although that's a critical ingredient, but from a numbers perspective. How are we creating efficiencies? How are we decreasing costs? How are we increasing profitability? So those are the types of things that you'll see match quite nicely with our trends and our survey results. 2012 was probably going to be a tough year for all of us, and as such, I hope the trends that we presented you here today maybe provided you with a little insight, maybe a guiding light, maybe some hint or flavor or suggestions of things to come and how you might be able to better yourself in your organization. Feel free to follow me at GRBRULE at twitter.com. My name is Glenn Brulé, and I thank you for your time. May all your requirements be clear.